What's the most awkward situation you've witnessed where an attempt to be funny just went absolutely wrong? I was woken up at 2 a.m. by the doorbell. Took a little while to become conscious and actually realize it was the doorbell, by which time my wife was awake as well. I go down to see who it is. It's a neighbor. As soon as I open the door, he tells me there is a fire next door. Next door is a building site and a small digger was currently ablaze. Slightly concerning as gas canisters were stored on the site. I rushed back upstairs and my wife looked out the window and could see the fire right outside. We decided to evacuate. The neighbor offers to let us stay in his house across the road to await the fire brigade. The neighbor and his wife are lovely and very welcoming. Fire brigade turned up very quickly and put it out. As we are thanking the neighbor, he apologizes for waking us up. I respond with, "Well, at least it wasn't Jehovah's Witnesses." He smiles but doesn't respond, and me and my wife head back indoors. As the door clicks shut, my wife hisses at me, "They are Jehovah's Witnesses." I then cringe a lot. Yikes, let's just hope it was one of those self-aware, kinda ironic Jehovah's Witnesses. Story 2. One of my close friends as a teenager, her older brother, had an inoperable tumor in his brain. It was bad. Her family was a bit religious, so they held a prayer thing for him at a local church, and I was invited. I was incredibly socially anxious at the time, and her family always intimidated me, like her mother was pretty judgmental and hard to please. So I was crazy nervous about attending this, just so much pressure. I show up, I pray with everybody. I'm not even sure how one prays exactly, but I did my best. And at one point, we're all supposed to write down little notes of encouragement and hope to her brother. Oh God, too much pressure. I can't think of anything to write. I'm that person who goes for a simple happy birthday on a card instead of a personal message. So I jot down, "Hope you don't pass away," and draw a kitty next to it, dropped it in the box, go home. A few weeks later, my friend calls me yelling, "Why did you write that?" And I can't even give her a good answer other than some stammered excuse about bringing levity to a heavy situation. I did the opposite. Her mom apparently read it and freaked the hell out. The cancer was pretty advanced at that point, so talking about that was way too real. I did not help make myself more likable in her family's eyes, that's for sure. Story 3. A few months after the space shuttle exploded in 1986, we had an assembly at our school from the folks at NASA or some such. We knew there was going to be a Q&A after, and we started goading our pal into raising his hand and telling one of the many space shuttle jokes that had been going around for months. Specifically this one. How many astronauts can fit in a Volkswagen? 2 in front, 2 in back, and 7 in the ashtray. Q&A comes up and we are needling Buddy. "Come on, man, raise your hand." Well, he finally did, but he either chickened out or couldn't tell a joke to save his life. He asked, "How many astronauts can fit in a car?" And we're already laughing. The lecturer either has been living under a rock or was unfamiliar with the jokes because he straightforwardly asked, "How many?" Weird pause. 7. That's it. The rest of the school didn't laugh, actually. There was this weird, deflating feeling that happened. The instructor wrapped it up. The teacher glared at my pal. He got detention. Story 4. Went on a ski trip with my class. I'm a teacher in 3 other classes. Some of the kids got sick, so we had to move some of them so they could stay in one room instead of making other kids sick. We made some signs for the toilets because you could never see if they were occupied, so you could just turn around the sign to occupied and turn it back when you were done. We had one kid sitting on the toilet retching, and one of my students came around the corner and tried to open the door, which was locked. A teacher from another class asked him pretty loudly if he was too dumb to read the sign. My student, who is dyslexic, by the way, just started crying and everybody around him just stood there and didn't know what to say. Story 5. It was me. In the high school marching band, one of the drum majors, Colin, was quite handsome. And I had a bit of a crush on him at first. After our big marching competition, we were on the buses and the drum majors were taking turns giving their congrats pep talks or whatnot. The first girl started tearing up, so a couple people shouted stuff like, "We love you," to help break up the silence. So Colin is giving his little speech, and during a pause, I decided it would be a great time to shout, "Colin is my idol." Because I lack charisma, it just sounded really cringy and creepy. I also said this as my boyfriend was sitting next to me. Nobody laughed, and I wanted to curl up and disappear. Yeah, the universe for them was like, hold up, let's dial back the cringe a bit. For Colin, he probably still has nightmares about that. Story 6. You know how sometimes in class when everyone is talking, everyone finishes their sentences at about the same time, and the whole class just goes quiet and basks in the weirdness of what just happened? That happened to my friend and I, but my friend kept talking. The teacher wasn't in the room and people were talking about how a student was going to roughen up a teacher for being prejudiced against a student. People were talking about how she'd take out the teacher, say all kinds of things, scare her, however they could dream up. Lots of little group conversations. Then everyone stopped, but my friend has a knack for talking too much to describe a joke and comes up with this gem. The chattering grows to a halt, everyone stops talking, and all you hear is, "Student name is gonna walk up and slap her with a big fish." He followed with a little giggle from himself and his trademark grin to encourage some supporting laughter, but it was too far gone. No one could mistake his words, nor could he deny he said them. The silence that filled the room was deafening. I think he's gotten over it now. I think I'll go remind him of it too. Story 7. Had just gotten seated for dinner with my wife when the teenage waiter stopped at the table next to us to ask the older couple if they needed anything else. The woman asked for a to-go box and then got up to go to the bathroom. When the waiter came back, he said something along the lines of, "Here is your box." The husband says, "Nah, her box is so much tighter and tastier than this one." It was like time stood still. The waiter had no idea what to do, and the old man thought it was funny. The waiter kind of awkwardly laughed, and the wife soon came back to the table. The husband told her what he said. She got really upset and then made the husband apologize to the waiter. The whole thing was just horrible. I felt so bad for that kid. Story 8. Didn't exactly go absolutely wrong per se, but it was certainly awkward, and the event in question was a horrible attempt to be funny. Friend invited me and other friends to see Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F in theaters. I'm a casual anime fan who grew up on Dragon Ball, so what the hell, why not? Movie starts with a short clip of one of the English dub voice actors thanking everyone for their support. As soon as it goes black to transition into the next bit, a Funimation behind-the-scenes trivia game deal, my friend who invited me yells, "You're welcome," in the hopes that people would notice his comedic genius. Not so much as a chuckle. Story 9. I was with the family posing for a group photo. I was in the back behind the couch, as were two women who happened to be some of the most attractive people I've ever met in my life, while everyone else was either on the couch or kneeling in front of it. Being the lover of Talladega Nights that I am, I put my hands up in the air and my mom had to keep redoing the picture. At some point I said, "I just don't know what to do with my hands," while the two women were bent over the couch to keep their children in check. The one next to me immediately misunderstood the quote, and I'm 100% sure she hated me ever since. To make it even better, she's now my sister-in-law. Her dad married my mom. We're not related in any way. Story 10. Aunt's boyfriend is a quiet person, doesn't say much during family gatherings, doesn't even smile when pictures are being taken. In an attempt to seem cool to me and my cousins during a trip he organized, he decided to join us in a drinking game. We're all above 21 years old, but would deliberately give wrong answers just so he would drink and be funny. He was not. He spent the time making fun of the boyfriend of one of my cousins. They weren't close. He also started asking questions to my cousins, questions that an uncle shouldn't be asking his niece or nephew no matter how old they are. Eventually, everybody became quiet and didn't want to participate in any conversation anymore. The moment that he asked who wanted to go to sleep, almost everyone raised their hands and walked out. We later found out that he was already hammered at that time. Well, I guess that was interesting. A bold move, but maybe not the best strategy for winning people over. Story 11. So I was going to this MMA gym for a while, maybe 6 months by that point. I'm a regular. This new guy stops in on a slow Saturday. Everyone's doing some open mat stuff and grappling. There's maybe 5 of us total there. The instructor has been talking to him since it's his first day. He's got some formal karate background and knows some striking, but really wants to focus on grappling. Enter the hour of open mat, and most of us are leaving, and the instructor is mentioning having a staph infection years ago and making sure you adequately shower and whatnot. Warn people of any rashes or such, and he casually goes, "So I should tell you about my herpes." Cue what is literally a whole minute of awkward silence and us all staring at each other, wondering if he was serious or not. Thankfully, one of the other guys finally goes, "Oh, you too," and we all kind of chuckle. The guy never came back. Story 12. I have a few that I cringe at. The first was Christmas at my uncle's house. We were all around the tree talking, and it was very well decorated with ornaments, garland, and of course, Christmas lights. These Christmas lights are the ones that blink very quickly. I say laughingly something along the lines of, "The tree is really beautiful, but I think it's going to give me a seizure." It went completely quiet. It slipped my mind that my uncle is epileptic and had a seizure the Christmas before. The second, I was in high school and I made a shirt with iron-on letters that said, "I beat a disease." At the time, I was probably 6'1" and 280 pounds. Everyone in my classes thought it was hilarious and I was pretty impressed with myself. Until I got to English. At the beginning of the hour, everyone was laughing. The teacher walked in and asked what was so funny, so I showed him my shirt. He then started talking about his niece who was suffering from it and may not make it. The whole class went silent. until a girl who came in late started asking everyone why it was so quiet and why no one was talking. No one said anything, and after a few awkward minutes, he started the class. Story 13. I used to attend a secondary school here in Ireland, and the fourth year in secondary school is this year called transition year, an optional year between junior and senior cycle. And this year, you get to choose a bunch of stuff, mostly things you wouldn't normally do in school, such as taking part in the school's musical. I was one of the individuals taking part in the musical, and in preparation for our acting, we did a little seminar with a drama teacher where the entire group doing the musical stood around in a circle and we made a noise. Can't remember what noise, to bring the turn around the circle. When it's your turn, you could either choose to make that noise, making it in the next person's turn, or say bang, making a weapon with your hand, and the next person would have to act out passing. At some point, the turn comes around close to me and I hear the bang sound, so of course, I decide to try to do this dramatic thing where I fall on the floor, start aggressively convulsing, and then stop. It wasn't until after I had completed this process of about 15 seconds that I realized that all eyes were on me and nobody was laughing. Turns out it was the guy next to me who was supposed to pretend, and everyone was just awkwardly watching me do this overly dramatic thing out. That was the first and last time I had tried to be funny in a very large group. Story 14. As a northern transplant to the south, most of my jokes fall flat. The latest was last Thursday at work. As I walked into the coffee room, I announced, "Day 4 of the taking situation." 4 people heard me, 2 were suddenly concerned, and the other 2 thought I was messed up. Another recent one was how I blew back on a fellow northerner. In a meeting, we were discussing better worker retention, and I made a couple of suggestions, including a better starting salary. Gina from the Bronx objected, cynically stating that most of our workers are looking for a quick ticket, and raising the starting salary would only make them split a day earlier. So I played the southerner, sweet and innocent, played like I was shocked that she would imply that our workers are opportunists. I felt bad and looked away. My fellow southerners looked concerned and tisks Gina for thinking all that. It was at that moment I could see in her eyes that she realized that she's not in the north anymore. I never apologized, and I'm not sure if she realizes that I played her. Story 15. So at my college, they had Haitian children from an orphanage come and sing for everyone. It was really sweet, and the kids were having a great time. They don't really know a lot of English, so the spokesperson of the orphanage was talking about them and the hardships they've endured after the earthquake. At one point, they were swaying and stomping so much to the beat of their songs that they were making the stage slightly sway. The spokesperson said, "They're moving so much there's going to be another earthquake." Yeah, not funny. Story 16. Happened just this last Wednesday. Went to Niagara Cave in Harmony, MN. The tour guide was explaining that a stream flowed underneath the entirety of the cave. "What happens when it rains?" someone asked. "In the spring, if it rains a lot, it can flood, but generally you won't notice any difference," explained the tour guide. Then an older man pipes in, "Well then, good thing we aren't in Houston." It was met with stunned silence except for the tour guide who thought he was asking a question. "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that." "Well then, good thing we aren't in Houston, because of all the rain and flooding." Crickets. Story 17. This one is so horrible. I worked at a daycare. It was pretty laid back, and the school-age kids were very sassy. The best way to keep them in line was to be sassy back. So the school-age kid comes into the infant class where I am. She asks if she can hang out and help. I told her she could stay if she helped clean up. That wasn't me being mean. They're only supposed to be out of their class if they're helping. Well, she didn't like that and threatened to tell my boss/the director something to get me fired. It was something petty and I wouldn't have been fired, but still. So my dumb self responds completely jokingly about how I was going to take her home with me and make her clean my whole house or something to that effect. She was black. She told her mom. They're both very offended. I'm a horrible person. Story 18. Myself, and it was extremely cringeworthy. Picture this. Me, age 16, on a Catholic church youth group trip out of state. Our group leader is sitting around a table where we're all eating dinner, and he asks if we have any funny jokes. So kids start telling their favorite stories and jokes, and it hits me. It's absolutely perfect. Remember how I said we were Catholics? That's important here. I told my youth group leader that I had a funny joke I wanted to tell, and I was giggling about it before I even started. It was a joke about the Pope and dating, and because I was so naive, I didn't realize it was actually about intimacy. When I was done, I looked around the room, and you could have heard a pin drop. Total silence. Everyone, including the youth group leader, were just looking at me as if to say, "I can't believe you just insulted the Pope. I've never felt so awkward in my life." Story 19. I was sitting my final exams in school. We just had our last math exam. I've always been awful at math, so I didn't even care how I'd done in it. I was just happy it was over and celebrating that I never have to do calculus or algebra or the Pythagoras theorem again for the rest of my life. After the exam, all the girls trailed into the bathroom and I was laughing and joking about, taking pictures on my phone of my friends, and noticed the back of another friend's head in front of me, so I shouted, "Hey Laura, take a picture with me," and jokingly stuck my camera in her face. She turned around and looked at me, and I realized she was in absolute hysterics, bright red face, tears and snot pouring down her cheeks, practically hyperventilating because she thought she'd messed up a question and had therefore ruined her entire life and chance at getting into college. Our final exams are obviously important, but this girl had always been very type A and highly strung and was always completely overreacting. Nevertheless, it was super awkward and I ran away and deleted the picture straight away. Sorry, Laura. Story 20. In secondary school, age 15 to 16, we had an award ceremony for some reason or another. The speaker stood in front of the school, approximately 1,200 students, and announces the winner as Ismail Mohammed. Turns out the actual winner was Ismail Mahmed. Cue awkward acceptance speech followed by silence, then a trickle of applause from somewhere in the crowd, then more silence. To add to this, the head teacher, principal, asked the school band for an impromptu drum roll before the announcement. Rather than an actual drum roll, what we got was an awkward 15-year-old panic at the prospect and completely failing to provide any sort of crescendo, just hitting away at the drums for a good 30 seconds until the head teacher had to say, "That's enough." I was good friends with all students involved. I felt so bad, but at the same time didn't let them live it down. High school was fun when I was at the target. Story 21. This happened a few months ago. A really well-known professor in mechanical engineering was invited to give a talk in our department. He was talking about the difference between an engineer and a mathematician. I picked that moment to tell a statement I heard from another professor of mine. You can tell the difference between an engineer and a mathematician by seeing who keeps the units in their answer. While this was meant as a compliment, the invited professor thought it was an insult and launched into a minute's rant about the arrogance of mathematicians, leaving looking very embarrassed for picking the wrong joke. Story 22. At my weekly bowling session, I paid for my games and shoes, went to the respective side, the one without music or flashing lights, and met up with my very, very clingy guy friend. He has a speech impediment, possibly autism too. His BHP, behavioral health professional, came marching over after he was telling me to read a little Velcroed card explaining the rules. Preston, Flutterpie can do what she wants, don't force her to do stuff, she has a life. Then she makes eye contact with me. Don't be afraid to say no to him if he gets in your way, okay? Then this kid sitting behind me, Walker, whom I didn't see, calls out with such intensity it echoes. I haven't said no since I saw my mom have intimacy with my dad in their bedroom. Say no to intimacy. There was no one else in the bowling alley but Eric and Brianna, my two friends who were bowling on two separate lanes next to each other, turned. Brianna dropped her bowling ball on the ground, Eric turned and stared at the kid, and every conversation with the other BHPs came to a halt. My BHP on Wednesdays looked from me to him, and my BHP on Thursdays and Mondays just sat there, slack-jawed. I turned and grasped, and Preston turned too. Literally almost every eye was on him. I could see Walker's BHP, Donna, was pretty mortified. But a few seconds later, she got up from her seat, marched over to Walker, grabbed him by the arm, and said, Get up, Walker." The kid gets up. I couldn't hear exactly what Donna said to Walker, but I heard, "Don't talk about intimacy," and my name was mentioned somewhere along those lines. Donna waited for Walker to bowl his last two frames and told him, "Put on your shoes, we're leaving." Donna exchanged quick goodbyes with everyone, and the two left. So yeah, needless to say, aside from my friend David's humming, the alley was pretty hushed after that. Walker never bowled his second game that he paid for. And if you're enjoying the video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 23. Back in high school, I think it was '06 or '07, I quoted Family Guy to my friends, including one girl I was crazy for, saying how Congress passed the Ten Commandments for a reason. Apparently, I was the only one who watched the show. They all instantly believed that I actually thought Congress passed the Ten Commandments. I cleared it up pretty quickly, even showing the quoted scene, but the real awkward moment was when I realized how low an opinion they must have of me to instantly accept my being an idiot without question. Also, I like to joke about people's tattoos. If they have a butterfly, I'll tell them they have a bug on them, etc. While I was working, I saw a guy with Brother's Keeper tattooed on his arm. Seeing my opportunity, I asked, "So, where's your brother?" When he didn't know, I jokingly point out it was his job to keep track of him. Instead, the guy gets real quiet and his mom chimes in. "His brother passed away. This is our first outing since then. Thanks." Well, on to the next customer. What are the odds? Story 24. I was in a your mama's joke phase. Don't ask me why. Well, my friend was moving a large icebox with her boyfriend. I had seen them before they saw me, so I asked them what was in the icebox. Before they could answer, I said, Your mom? That's when it came back to me that the girl's mother passed away the year before from cancer. The look of bewilderment, followed by me profusely apologizing, colored the rest of that evening. Thankfully, she's been a friend for a long time, but I still cringe super hard whenever I think of it. Also, one time while chilling at a hotel bar having a conversation with a bartender, one intoxicated guy stumbles up and barges into the conversation. I didn't mind at all, but out of the blue, he said, I couldn't say something really inappropriate. Both of me and the bartender told him that he's not going to offend us. This guy told the bartender she should consider implants and proceeded to call her mosquito bites. He tried saying it in a joking manner, but that only made it worse. Story 25. I have a good one. So, my boyfriend, his family, and I went on a trip for the weekend to celebrate his sister's birthday. I don't get along with his family very well, especially his sister celebrating her birthday. Prior to the trip, my boyfriend told me his cousin was going to try and mess with me. He's older and married, so in my head, I'm thinking, I'm hurting this guy and messing with him first. His family has been really mean to me for the past 4 years since we started dating. In their eyes, I'm not good or cute enough. When we get there, I say hi to his sister, the one celebrating her birthday. I walk inside to be greeted by his cousin. He tells me, Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. I replied, No, I did see you like 2 weeks ago, didn't I? I genuinely thought I had for some reason. Him? No, I haven't. I realized I had it and tried to save it by saying, Joke. Oh, wait, I did. I saw you with your side chick. Crickets. His wife looks at him, they exchange awkward looks, and I book it to my room. 30 seconds later, his wife came in asking what that was all about, and I simply said it was a joke. She then tries to start making me look bad by telling everyone I didn't say hi and how I was so rude. My boyfriend comes in 10 minutes later scolding me, saying how they told him everything I said and that I was so rude. Apparently, they've been having trust issues, and when I said the joke, you could clearly tell I was joking. And I did say hello. My mother taught me to have manners. My talking crap side is all me. Sorry for it being so long. I just had to type it out. Am I a witch for saying that? He said I was, but I don't know. They've messed with me way worse, even making me cry about the indirect things they say to me. All right, now, I'm done. Story 26. At school, I'm about 17 or 18 at the time. We had a kid from a few years below us, he must have been 13 or 14, come into our geography class and ask for a few books of whatever from our teacher as they had run out in his class. He has the kind of glasses that are massive and the equivalent of crazy mirrors or something with the way the lenses bend the light and vision. Teacher hands him the books, he says thanks, walks outdoor, door closes, and I go, should have gone as Specsavers, mate. Teacher goes, he has to have those glasses due to his condition or something similar. Awkward silence. Good one, X, from the guy at the back, really sarcastically clapping, and the class laughs. I wanted to run away. Story 27. Met an author I really, really like at a convention this summer. It was completely unexpected and I didn't have anything for him to sign, so I just asked my friend to take a picture of us. My friend snapped the photo and jokingly said, I just got you in the photo and that's what you wanted, right? Starstruck and flustered, I responded also jokingly, haha, of course, I mean, I have no idea who this is. I thought it would be apparent that I was kidding, having gushed over the novels and expressing excitement for the new book. However, his face and tone shifted to professionally courteous as he said, Thank you, through what looked like a teeth-grinding, polite smile and turned his attention to the next person in line. Needless to say, I felt terrible. I saw him wandering around the convention floor the next day and wanted to say something, but I knew it would just come out twice as awkward and make everything worse. Story 28. In 6th or 7th grade, my friend and I were in my basement playing Halo, and my older sister and her friend were playing on the pool table nearby. For whatever reason, between takes, my sister always held the pool stick between her legs. So between matches, my friend looks over and says in a tone probably louder than even he expected, Look at her riding that stick. I think he thought we'd be impressed that he knew that word, but all it did was gross me out and embarrass my sister. I couldn't even look at him, but I remember my sister's friend quietly laughing in a what the hell did he just say kind of way. After that, I was embarrassed that I had invited him over. I'm not even sure he realized how cringy that was to say. I'm still somewhat friends with the guy, but I don't bring that up because it was just a gross moment and it makes me uncomfortable. It was just too cringy not to mention here in anonymity. Story 29. Years ago, I messed up. My mother wants to buy movie tickets for her and her three teenagers, two older teenagers and one that could be anywhere between 12 to 15. He was standing on the side and looking away. I asked his age to know whether I'd give him a child or adult ticket, and he hesitated a long time and mumbles 13. Now, when people hesitate so much, it's because they're trying to find the cutoff age to get the better deal, whether they were around 13 or about to be 65. I never really cared if people lie about their age as long as they're allowed to watch the movie according to the rating. And so I assumed at the time that he was probably lying and tried to joke about it while handing all the tickets over. Oh, it took you some time to remember. The mother, protective of her son, I was not making fun of him, but I can definitely see why she thought that, becomes angry with me and informs me that her son has this or that well-known deficiency. Story 30. So I was in 8th grade. The previous spring, there was a high-profile termination in our high school that really shook the town and community. The family and friends decided that they would put on a concert and donate the profits to awareness and prevention. The first act was great. The Pete and Mike band played a nice acoustic set and were generally very humble and supportive. However, headlining the show was then relevant Boston area rapper Sammy Adams. This guy pulls up in a limo with a live stream of him walking from the limo onto the stage. Whatever, right? He's a rapper, expected to be a little showy. He seems kind of trash, but he comes out strong and plays a couple songs. After the second song, he starts talking to the crowd. Are there any Celtics fans in the house tonight? Kind of a layup in our Boston suburb. Various cheers. Yeah, man, I can't believe they lost yesterday. I wanted to throw myself off a building. Drop silence. You can pretty much see the entire crowd cringing at this C-list rapper making that kind of joke at the prevention concert. I like to think this was the beginning of his descent into obscurity. Story 31. Late to the party, but I still can't get past this. About 3 weeks ago, it was my first day away at university. I was in a circle of new students, and we were going around introducing ourselves and saying what our major was, etc. In this group of about 20, everybody had been quiet and shy, and nobody seemed excited to be there. So I tried to lighten the mood. When it got to my turn, I said my name and then pretended to start saying, and I have a drinking problem, but cut it off to make it seem like a mistake. Nobody made a sound and everybody was just staring at me. I did my best to push past it, but that kind of thing fuels my nightmares. Being social is already difficult for me, and when I think about this, I just want to go back to bed. Story 32. It wasn't an attempt to be funny, but a series of attempts to congratulate. I have a very large family and it's always growing with marriages and the like. There was this one year we were all going to be having a 4th of July party at a new relative's house through marriage. So a lot of people were going to be meeting new people tonight. One of my cousins was pregnant at the time and it was something that her family was very proud about. It became something that other people who hadn't met my cousin yet were learning about it in advance of this whole coming together party. So the night of the party, it was just getting going and I'm hanging out in the kitchen and getting my mixed beverage. Someone's girlfriend is there. She's about the same age as my cousin. She's an attractive girl, attractive face, an attractive body, except a pretty big tummy. Like, minus the big tummy, this chick is pretty hot. She wasn't fat anywhere else either. It was pretty weird. While I'm sitting there in the kitchen making my drink and a new guest comes in, they see her, don't recognize her, and go straight for the congratulations, how many months? Man, she was pretty angry. I'm not pregnant. Weird moment. Then the would-be congratulator decides to get the hell out. I decided to stay and have my drink right there. This same freaking scenario then proceeds to happen again and again and again as people arrive. It was brutal. I seriously watched at least 5 people congratulate her before I decided I'd seen enough. Side note, I saw this chick a couple years later and she was in much better shape. Maybe this day helped her. Story 33. I went to boarding school in high school. My roommate in the dorms one year was a sweet girl that was a hard worker / rule follower / good in all her classes and a year older than me. One night our dorm had a meeting and she wasn't there. Someone asked where she was and I thought it would be funny to say she passed out in a gutter somewhere because everyone knows that's the last place she would be. Well, I guess nobody took it that way because her friends went and told her what I had said and she confronted me later that night angry and crying. I tried to explain that it was a joke, but she wasn't having any of it. She didn't talk to me for the rest of the year, which was really awkward when you share a room with someone. Story 34. Was camping with my friends like every year, and the girl we met one of the previous times was also there and visited us. Drinks were shared, we had fun, etc. The weather wasn't particularly nice the last few days, but finally the sun was coming out in full force. I noticed a lack of any type of cap I had, went inside my tent and used a shirt to wrap around my head like a pirate. Well, apparently I didn't make as much of an impression as a pirate as for a very sick person. My skin is pale, plus the 60 sunscreen. and my impromptu headwear was covering all my hair. My friends immediately burst out laughing, making cancer jokes, making photos with me because I got through chemo, etc. After the initial commotion, the girl eventually left like half an hour later. You all probably guessed it already, but we only realized after one of the guys said, "Didn't her grandpa recently pass away from cancer?" Story 35. I was studying abroad in London for a semester several years ago. I was in an internship program with 11 other people. All the other interns arrived on time, but one still hadn't shown up almost 2 weeks into the program due to a visa issue. One night, I went into the computer lab to waste time before Skyping with my bestie in our college in Boston. It was me in the lab, along with another girl and a guy a couple of computers away from her. When I heard her spell out her last name to him, he was trying to add her on Facebook. I introduced myself because I had seen her name on a piece of paper that listed the names of the interns. Here, the guy, turns out he was a grad student and his home state was Florida, and I began talking about what we studied back home. I was an American Studies major with a focus on popular culture and representation. I was interested in how the media influenced children and mentioned I wasn't a fan of Disney because they own too much and there are too many princess toys. The girl started laughing and the guy said with all seriousness, "I work for Disney?" Whoops. The girl never let me live it down. She and another girl in our group didn't invite me to Disneyland Paris and ragged on me by saying I ruined their childhood. At least now working with kids, as I did back then too, the parents agree with me and like that their kids question the narratives. Story 36. My roommate had been scaring me daily for the last, 3 weeks? He would hide behind the bathroom door or wait for me to come home from work and jump out and yell, scaring the crap out of me and setting my nerves on edge for the rest of the day. So one day I'm home and I hear the front door. I decide it's my time for retribution. I prance over to the door and hunker down. I hear him walking, then his keys. He opens the door to our apartment, and as he gets an inch inside, I jump up and bellow as loud as I can. Yeah, turns out it was his girlfriend. She literally screamed and started crying. I instinctively started apologizing and touched her shoulder, only to remember she had a history of cruelty and hated being touched. Oh, and when I called my roommate to apologize to him, he let me know she was there to pick up her stuff as they had just ended their 5-year relationship. Still cringing to this day. Story 37. I was visiting a friend who lived in a flat when a lad and a girl knocked at the door. They were brother and sister, but the girl had moved in the flat next door with her boyfriend, but as her boyfriend works away a lot, her brother was helping her move in. She wanted to introduce herself and ask a few questions about what it's like living there. During the conversation, my friend innocently said, "And if ever your boyfriend is working away and you're scared, you can always come around here." Her brother just said, "What?" So my friend tried to explain, "No, I just mean with you being alone. If you get scared, you can always just knock here, not that there's anything to be scared of." Then he added, "Except ghosts," and wiggled his fingers in her face and made ghost-like noises. She thanked him for that and they walked off. Story 38. My girlfriend and I were offered to spend 4th of July this year at her grandparents' lake house. My girlfriend's various aunts and uncles were there. My girlfriend and I have this running gag where I find all of the women in her family attractive, and she finds all the men in mine attractive too. Most of them are in on it, so making rude comments is shrugged off. But when her honestly gorgeous aunt was in a bikini next to my girlfriend, my girl adjusting her top and said, "God, my great big melons are so painful on my back." Her aunt replied, "I don't typically have the problem of melons on my back." I shouted, "It's all right. I'll bear the burden of both your melons on my back." She wasn't in on the gag yet. She was so horrified she didn't speak to me the rest of the trip. Her grandma was laughing her back off, though. Grandpa and husband, not so much. Story 39. I was at a party when one of my friends turned up already really hammered. Let's call him Mark. He was making stupid jokes and generally making people uncomfortable. He came and sat down with me and a group of people. I was trying to calm him down, but he kept saying, "Your mom" jokes and saying he slept with my mom. I brushed it off and thought I'd better take him home because he was in a state. Mark's only response at this point was, "I did your mom." It got a few laughs from people. I think it was awkward laughter. He started going around the circle telling each person he did their mom one after another. Everyone just laughed it off and nobody took offense. Then I remembered our friend Katie was in the circle and he was getting close to her. Katie's mom had passed away when she was a kid, so I was praying, in his hammered state, he would remember this and stop before he got to her. But no, it was Katie's turn and the group fell silent after he claimed to have did her mom. Mark didn't know why everyone stopped laughing at his amazing joke. It was the second most awkward silence I've ever felt. Katie, wanting to break the awkwardness, quietly popped up and said, "Actually, my mom passed away years ago." At this point, Mark should have just apologized, and he could have because it was just a stupid joke and she didn't seem mad, just uncomfortable like everyone else. But his only response to try and break the awkward silence and get a laugh at the same time was, "Screw that, I'm not doing that." This was my top spot for the most awkward silence I've experienced. Story 40. I have an opposite situation where someone was trying not to be funny, but it turned awkwardly hilarious instead. I was at church with my parents in the early 90s, and I only remember one sermon. It was a very straight-laced, super religious church that I went to. Everyone was on the lookout for each other's faults. The slightest break from conventional thinking was quickly gossiped about and might even lead to a talking to from the minister. However, one day the minister is standing up at the podium giving a sermon about God's blessings on people and how his blessings are directly correlated to how we live our lives. At one point, he breaks into an analogy about archery and being blessed with many children. He says, "And some men are blessed with much larger arrows than others." He meant to say more arrows. Suddenly, a collective giggle went up from the membership. I'd never seen anything like it. It's like the entire church was simultaneously realizing that he just said that some men have bigger Johnsons than other men. So he tries to correct himself and says, "What I meant to say is that some quivers get more arrows than others." Nope, that didn't help either. Another collective giggle from the audience. So then he starts embarrassed laughing. I mean, like really laughing. The entire congregation is now laughing. It was hilarious and awkward. That was the day that I learned all the ultra prudishness was just for public show. And if you like these stories, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.